a way of getting more light on your face before we start? You're
Uh,
sort of
Hold
inside.
on a second.
It's not, I mean, it's not, a desperate situation, but if it is possible.
No, no, wait a minute.
Oh my God, that's Hitchbot in the back.
Yeah,
Yay! Fantastic. Okay.
Frauke, do you have a desk lamp there? You could just turn it towards you a bit.
I don't have a desk phone.
Okay.
I can turn on HBOT though.
Oh yeah, please. That would be so fun. That's fantastic. Oh my God, wow. He's really got quite a lot of stuff on him. Like,
Decorated.
wow, nice. Okay. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and get started and we can get going. So, is everyone, you ready, Frauke? Is everything?
Yes, sorry about that.
Great, great. Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte Hohenstein and you're watching Breakthrough News on BTR Today. Today we're talking to the makers of Hitchbot, the world's first hitchhiking robot. I'm joined by creators David Harris Smith of McMaster University and Frauke Zeller of Ryerson University, who set their creation loose on the highways of Canada. Unfortunately, the robot did return intact after 3 weeks of hitchhiking. Frauke and David, thank you very much for joining me today. This is an absolutely fascinating project to me. So Hitchbot completed this 3-week full-on road trip right across the entirety of Canada from Halifax to Victoria. First of all, congratulations that it was successful.
Thank you very much.
Frauke, first of all, was it nerve-wracking putting your robot in the trust of complete strangers for 3 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely, it was. I was quite worried in the beginning, and I thought this is never going to work out. But that was part of the experiment. And then shortly after HBOT started, and I could see how the people embraced HBOT and how much they loved the idea, I was quite reassured. So that really helped all the people on social media and traditional media to really, rooting for HBOT and cheering. That was great.
And you have Hitchbot right next to you in your room. David, could you talk to me a bit about the general idea behind Hitchbot? Because as I understand it, it was very much to see whether or not robots could trust humans, right? Which is kind of counterintuitive because everyone's always worrying about robots threatening, threatening human existence in the future with sort of dystopian ideas. So could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, it's this project for us really brings together a couple issues, and it brings these issues together in the form of a kind of performative, creative work. And so we see Hitchbot as predominantly in the kind of realm of artworks, new media artworks. But the project, if we think about robots, as autonomous machines, machines that we can actually set loose into the world. We have some examples of those, like the Mars rover project, for example, that has garnered such incredible popularity that people can follow it on social media. And so this idea of sending an autonomous machine or a bot out to do dangerous work informs this project a little bit. We're used to sending robots, say, into military conflict zones. To explore hostile environments, but we kind of turned that idea around a little bit and said, well, what about exploring our culture? What about the first unmanned mission to planet Earth? So the idea was to set Hitchbot off on, to do something slightly risky. And hitchhiking, I guess, has that, kind of slightly risky connotation. But it's also, we also wanted to make a little bit of a or trigger some reflection and some discussion about the nature of adventure, our sense of adventure, our sense of public safety, and also this idea of rideshare. When you put hitchhiking in that terminology, it suddenly sounds very contemporary and so very kind of planet friendly.
Well, and there's also a sense of adventure for the humans, of course, who are taking this strange robot into their car for however long. So, Frauke, would you say you were happy? So it seems like it was a huge success. Did you go into this with any expectations?
Yes, in a way, yes. I mean, we were planning what might people do, what do they think, and we know from research, from human-robot interaction research, we do know some basic facts about how people interact with robots and what they expect and things like that. So that's all we expected, but I never really expected so much goodwill and that people were so enthusiastic about HitchBot. So yes, I was planning and hoping to have this kind of success, also in terms of the media strategy we implemented, but we never thought it would be such a great success.
David, would you have been able to even step in and intervene if something had happened to the robot? I mean, if it hadn't gone so well and someone had wanted to harm it, could you have stepped in?
Yes, we could have, but actually, unfortunately, we didn't need to. But we were prepared, if HitchBots should have some kind of unfortunate accident, like going for a swim when it shouldn't, or getting run over or something. We would be, because the cost of technologies are so low, we would be willing to replace it and kind of set in, HitchBots, genetic rival in place to to carry on. And the also from the point of view of the kind of artistic performance of this piece, if something should go wrong, that wasn't really something that ultimately would indicate a failure. It would just indicate a very specific kind of outcome that was always possible. And we even had a strategy in place for where is HitchBot, like the missing posters, the milk cartons.
Oh God! Oh, that sounds.
I know, but
been dark.
fortunately we didn't need to go there. So.
In what way, and I'll put this question to Frauke, because you're talking about it in this artistic sense. In what way do you see it as artistic?
In a way, yes, more in terms of what people have done with it, like a performative art project.
Clearly, I mean, is that a flower coming off its head, or what?
Yes, these are some feathers. They took this from the First Nation Salish people on Victoria Island.
Wow, that's amazing.
They are moving. Yeah. Yeah.
So it turns into this sort of collaborative, almost decorative effort as well.
Absolutely. Someone painted black nail polish on its fingers. It looks really groovy. And has lots of little things, knickknacks on jewelry, basically. Someone painted eyebrows here on the cake saver. And yes, they really transformed HitchBot into a new personality, which was fantastic.
Yeah, and that's amazing to see, people spontaneously, because obviously no one's planning to pick a robot off the highway, spontaneously tap into these artistic impulses when they're presented with some fun opportunity to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And also what they did was they came up with most creative ideas how to stage HitchBot to get some nice pictures. And that was amazing to see. So you can tell that really this piece of technology inspires people's creativity, which is a wonderful thing.
Did it just wink at me?
Yes.
Amazing. David, you mentioned social media, and certainly that's one thing that you guys programmed HitchBot with was these social media capabilities. How important was the social media component for this journey?
Oh, it was essential in a way because if you think about engagement with new media works, often we're limited to gallery venues, right? So very, very kind of set aside venues that are in a way a barrier to participation for many. There's with the social media outcome, we in effect had a remote audience now, and an audience that could be asynchronous, that not everybody has to be watching at the same time, that you can daily you can check up on the progress of HitchBot by looking to see where it is. If you want to tweet about it, you can do that. And people, it was funny, we had people actually making their own little bots and then posting photos of their creations. So.
Oh my God, it was like spawning a Hitchbot family.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and I think you know, for Frauke, whose area of research you know, historically has been human-robot interaction, the project really, you know, kind of highlights the extension. If you have a robotic device and it's now connected with social media, you have a whole new interaction realm for that robot, which is different than the physical interaction.
And I'm sure that possibility of posting things on social media also enhances people's artistic inspiration. You know, as you're mentioning the photos and everything, I'm sure that's all
Yeah.
part of it as
Well,
well.
I think one of the things that, you know, I'd like to talk about, if we're talking about this work as an art project, you know, one of the intentions of the project was to engage people in discussions of our interaction with these new technologies, but also to engage people with the discussion of their culture. And if you remember at the beginning, we said, you know, this is, what if we send a robot off to explore the culture? And in this case, I think it was highly successful because Hitchbot became kind of this lens that people would pass through to talk about themselves and to talk about the nature of Canadian society, you know, or Canadian aspirations, you know, to be helpful, to be cooperative, to play together. And so it was actually quite emotional when Hitchbot completed its journey, because we had a summer where we had a lot of competing bad news. There was a great affection that had been cultivated, you know, in Canada for this project as it journeyed across the country.
Wow, that is really, really wonderful. We are going to have to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this quick excerpt from the latest episode of Live Studio featuring Sun Club. This is where the music break goes,
Okay.
and
How long
that
is
will
it?
be inserted in. The music break is going to be, it's like 30 seconds. It's very brief, but they splice it, so we'll just keep going. Okay. This is so interesting, though. Wow, I didn't even realize fully the whole artistic side of it, which is really cool. Anyway, okay. Um, Hi everyone, we are back with our conversation on Hitchbot, the first hitchhiking robot in the world. So David, earlier you were talking about the cultural role of Hitchbot and not only exploring for the robot exploring this culture, but actually for humans to explore their own culture. People have been saying, right, that part of the success was because Canadians are so nice. So would you want to send this out into other countries?
Well, I'll let Frauke take that. You go ahead.
Well, we do have Office, and it's interesting. It's turning into this global competition. People saying, well, it's not only Canadians being nice, we are nice too, bring it to our country, right? So we'd love to, and we are actually discussing several options at the moment with some offers from other countries, and I think it would be fantastic if we could do that.
Wow. How did you, and I'll put this question back to David. So how did you decide how to program Hitchbot? Because it had speech recognition, social media capabilities, Wikipedia capabilities, artificial intelligence. I'm not sure necessarily how all those break down technologically, but was that a very tricky decision-making process?
No, well, not so much tricky to decide what we wanted, tricky to make what we wanted happen, you know, to happen. So, you know, we basically, you know, it was an exercise of imagination, you know, and trying to anticipate, first of all, what it would take to be picked up by somebody. So there was a lot of constraints around the physical shape and form. And, you know, as Frauke has often pointed out, it's very important when you're designing a robot that it actually looks like a robot. You know, people's popular conception of what a robot might be, and you know, to avoid this kind of uncanny realism. So we didn't want to have anything that had a very realistic face, and certainly we wanted something small that had to be light. Somebody could pick it up and put it in their car. You know, but then beyond that, we wanted to say, well, how could this be engaging for drivers? Well, it should be able to talk to them in some way. And we know that we can't write an endless library of conversation responses. So we thought, well, let's give it some Canadiana, things that it can talk about in terms of, the Canadian Shield or the prairies, features of geography or the history of certain places, which is where the Wikipedia came in handy. We were able to pull information from Wikipedia. And then we also recognize that, well, with speech recognition, it's a noisy environment. Maybe it's not going to work all the time. So what other strategies should we have in place to kind of keep the conversation moving? And this is very similar to what you or I might do if we're talking with someone and we're suddenly distracted and we didn't really catch what the person said, but we don't want to let on. We might say, "And so, how's your mother?"
That's what that means. Okay.
Yeah. So so the process was like that, of us trying to imagine what would be needed and then trying to incorporate those features.
So, Frauke, would you program it with different languages then, going forward, depending on the country that it's in?
I think that's essential, yes, to gain people's trust and that people know how to interact with the robot. I think language is the main key to for social interaction, absolutely. So we would have to do that.
David, would you say that we're at a particular turning point in the study of robotics in general? I know that recently Eugene Goostman, a chatbot, passed the Turing test for the first time, where it actually convinced enough humans that it was a 13-year-old boy, albeit like a foreign one from the Ukraine whose English wasn't perfect. But do you think that this is a particularly critical turning point for exploring these issues of human-robot interactions?
Yeah, well, I think right now there is a renewed interest, and I think it's a number of things have probably come into play. The speech recognition and language modeling. So many people have been at work on these things, and I think also the ability to access and retrieve really large data sets. So internet connectivity and robots together make for an entirely scaffolded stage of development, that we can begin to combine these technologies that we have at our disposal now and achieve more results. The other thing is parts are getting cheaper, right? So we now have kind of just-in-time manufacturing where people can order parts through these crowdsourcing services where people competitively build or bid to supply parts. And even inside HitchBot itself, there's, we started looking at assembling our own computer circuitry and then realized that, well, actually almost everything that we need to do here is on a very cheap tablet. So we could actually repurpose a tablet.
Wow.
So I think that's also going to make a difference, that you have many, many more people potentially contributing to outcomes. Much easier for university researchers, to enter the field.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up soon. I'll just ask a final question to Frauke, because there certainly is, at least for people outside of the field of robotics, I think there is quite a lot of unease about where it's going and what the future might look like. Do you think that a lot of this is unwarranted? Do you have any particular wariness yourself about managing the progress of technology, or do you think that a lot of it's just hype and instant experiments like HitchBot will be very necessary to make humans feel more comfortable with robots?
Well, I agree, and I wouldn't say that a lot of it is hype. Certainly a lot of the concerns are also based on the fact that it's really difficult to really understand what is possible today in terms of research and to estimate what's possible in 5 years or 10 years. That's quite difficult if you look at the past 20 years, 20, 30 years in robotics and what we've achieved, what we haven't. But I think what is very important too is to always, well, not to forget who is behind the robots, who is actually building them, who's programming them, and it's always us, human beings. So I always have a little bit of a problem when we keep pushing the commitment or like the responsibility to the robots as if they were really intelligent entities, saying, oh, they become more and more dominant in these things, well, but only if we program it that way, right? If we decide the human beings behind it, so it's our responsibility. And I think it's very important that we keep talking about that. And HitchBot also instilled that a little bit, which is great.
Well, we'll end on that optimistic note. I guess we need to keep humans invested in robots. Thank you very, very much, David and Frauke, for joining me today, and for HitchBot for sitting in on the conversation. We'll be right back in a moment after this quick excerpt of BTR Live Studio this week on BreakthroughRadio.com, featuring Roz and the Rice Cakes. Thank you. That's it. You guys are good to go. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Lovely conversation, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay. Where are you? Where are you situated?
I'm based in Manhattan. I'll send you so the link will go up on our website on Friday, and I can send you guys the link when it does.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.